All right, it is Wednesday. I'm leaving the office, and I got a topic from Reddit. I think this one's pretty cool. Um, let's see. Let me just pull it up because I'm parked. I can read it. This person asks, "What are things I can do to make myself irreplaceable?" And I say, "Okay, hear me out. I know everyone is replaceable, but I meant how do I make myself a software engineer with 3 years of experience very important to the company?" I want to be a tech lead. I don't like managerial positions. I'm a tech guy. I like the tech side of things, like system design, architecture, so on and so forth. So, what are things I can do to make myself irreplaceable? It's an interesting question. So, let's get that moved. When I hear this kind of thing come up, and I don't necessarily think that this person's saying it this way, but when I hear this kind of thing come up about being irreplaceable, a lot of the time I hear people talk about this kind of thing from the perspective of job security. And I think partially this person's saying they want to be important. That is like a job security thing. But I think that sometimes I hear this come up as in I want to be irreplaceable, as in someone can't fire me because the company would go up in flames, right? I am that important that if they lost me, I have some type of secret. People are flying down this road, man. Holy cow. I've never seen this. I've never seen it. It's nuts. Sorry, this is this is too much. Come on, Tesla. Holy cow. What a jerk. Okay, so when I hear people talk about this, usually it's such that sorry, someone has to cross the street here. They can't, they're so important they can't be fired. Not I'm so good at this, but if you fired me, I have the keys to the thing and you don't have them now because you fired me. That kind of thing where it's just dangerous to have the person go. So I think this framing is, I hope, a little bit different. But I wanted to kind of talk about the other part first and why that doesn't really work from a job security perspective. And before I do that, just a quick reminder that if you have questions you want answered, please just add them to the comments below. And if you have something that's I don't know, you want to keep more private, keep anonymous, just send me a message. Look for Dev Leader on social media or Nick Cosentino on LinkedIn. I have a premium profile. You should be able to message me without any issue. As far as I know, that's how it works, but try it out. Happy to try and navigate the challenges and stuff you're having in your careers for software engineering. So the idea of job security and how do I make myself irreplaceable for job security, I don't think that works very well, at least not the way that people like to think. So people think often that if they're irreplaceable, it means they can't be fired. By the way, no, bad strategy. But they also think that's their ticket. The secret to job security is be irreplaceable, be the person that hoards the knowledge or hoards something, and that's why you're irreplaceable. But I think that this fails ultimately you, because it means that probably you're not able to actually have growth in your career because you're literally stuck. So even if you were working at a company and they were okay, we're not going to fire Jim because Jim has the secret, we can't have Jim go, okay, but guess what, Jim? I hope you really like that thing that you're holding the secret for, because that's probably all you're ever going to be doing. So I just think it's a crappy strategy. And I think that that's a pretty career limiting thing to do. Not only that, the reality is, I think that trying to put yourself in that position just so you won't get fired or something is probably gonna be a very bad surprise someday for some people. So please don't do that. Okay, I wanted to get that out of the way because I think that that's one sort of perspective we can take when looking at this question. But I do think that the way that this person's asking this is not so much, hey, I want to be irreplaceable. Like, how do I maliciously find a way that's going to secure me, that kind of situation? But they're actually saying, like, I do want to be like a tech lead, which, like, I do want to have responsibilities and be important and be valuable. So when they say irreplaceable, to me, it sounds like, and they kind of say it like in their wording, but like, how do I make myself important and add value, right? So I do like this question. I think that there's different ways to look at this for different people. But I wanted to kind of walk through my philosophy on this. And it's interesting when I was kind of looking through for a topic and came across this one. I knew what I wanted to talk about, which was that very brief part. And then I wanted to talk about how I approach this in my career. And I was scrolling through and I saw someone leave a comment and I was like, that's the thing. And I responded to the comment. I don't comment much on Reddit because usually people are, in my experience, people are pretty awful on Reddit for some reason. So I decided I would comment and say, like, hey, like, you know, I appreciate that. Like, that's kind of my philosophy as well. But what does that look like? My approach on this kind of thing is it's going to sound very backwards. So hear me out because I'll try to explain it as best I can. It's not about making yourself irreplaceable. It's to make yourself very replaceable. And I've actually done live streams on this. I've written articles on this. But it's kind of flipping the thing around. So the way, in my opinion, that you make yourself extremely valuable is by finding ways to literally make yourself replaceable so that you can move on to more important work. Sorry, I gotta move over lanes here. It's like an hour to get home. So you guys are stuck with me for a long time. Get ready. And we have our first person of the evening without lights on behind me. God, I don't understand how people drive like this. Like, did you just forget to start thinking today? You're in a car at night, you don't have lights on. How does it happen? Okay. So, when I talk about trying to make yourself replaceable, the reason that I realize it sounds like kind of stupid, like, so you're just telling me that anyone should come in and be able to do my job. And like, kinda, like you kind of want to move things to a point where anyone could be able to do your job. Okay, so the reason that sounds scary, I think, to a lot of people is because you might be saying, well, if anyone could do my job, doesn't that literally suggest that they could get rid of me and I am of no value then? But the idea here is that you've added so much value into I'm going to use air quotes here because I don't have a better word for it. You've added so much value into the system that value add that you've put in has replaced you. I really need this person to speed up so I can switch lanes here. Come on. Okay. Sorry. If I didn't, I was going to get stuck and have to merge over like 3 lanes. No one wants that. So that idea, I think, is sort of like the crux of it, right? So it's not that, hey, you didn't add any value. It's literally that you added so much value that what you put into the system now means that you no longer have to put in any more effort because it's almost like perpetuating the value that you added. And here is all the traffic. Excellent. I thought we were on to something good, but 58 minutes to get home. I don't think the time went down since I got in the car, which is scary. So, let me get a sip because I'm dying. I'm so hungry and thirsty at the same time. Good thing that's a smoothie. So let me talk about this from an engineering management perspective, because that's going to be at least a lot of my career. But then we can, have sort of different takes on this, and I'll try to dive in different directions. But I think that when it comes to leading teams, right? I don't think that, okay, so when I think about leading a team, I want to make sure that I'm working with the individuals on the team. My role as a manager is to enable individuals to do their best work possible and align that with the business, right? That way they can grow in their career. People have good challenges. The business is able to do better because people are doing their work more effectively and it's aligned with what the business needs. All these good things happen. There are parts to my job that aren't just like, hey, let me talk with so-and-so, make sure that things are good. Like, there are parts to my job that are very much like, we have inefficiencies or challenges and we need to sort them out. And let me kind of like interject, let me find ways to work with people on the team, let me find ways to work with partner teams, whatever it happens to be, to try and make these things better. And so it's almost like trying to smooth out a lot of the different processes or whatever that are in place. So when I talk about making myself replaceable as an engineering manager, what I'm not saying is like, oh, I just need to make it so that people are so comfortable they don't need any career guidance or they don't need one-on-ones. Like, that's not what I'm getting at. It's a lot more of the other parts. So to give you an example, if someone brought me into a team and was like, hey, I want you to lead this team. I want you to work on, making this like an effective team that's thriving. They can be productive. They can be happy. And like kind of leaving that up to you to go make that happen, right? If the team itself wasn't sort of working well together, maybe it's a new team, maybe it's a team that's had some churn, like whatever the situation happens to be, like my goal just from a team dynamic would be to try and make sure that the team can work cohesively. Okay, so that the team has aligned values in terms of what the team's charter is, the things that they need to be delivering. If this sounds all kind of hand-wavy, the reason I'm saying these things is because when it comes to the different types of work items that are coming up that we need to prioritize and get work done on, ultimately there's going to be disagreements in priority, there's going to be disagreements in implementation detail. But when the team can rally behind, like, what are the things that our team actually values that we want to prioritize? When there's alignment that way, it makes those conversations when there's disagreements around priority or what's most important or how to approach things, you can really start to say, hey, look, if we go back to what our team cares about, this is an important thing. Like, that means that we should prioritize this thing over this other thing. And it can make decision-making a lot more clear. But that's an aspect of like efficiency within the team. Okay, so my goal is to try and drive a team towards that. Now, it's not as clear cut as that. It's not just like I snap my fingers and like, hey, everyone on the team is aligned and we get along and everything makes sense and there's never any challenge. Like, it's not like that. But I need to work with the team to build up like what that looks and feels like. It also means that I need to make sure that the team is comfortable having disagreements. I need to make sure that the team is comfortable refining their processes, speaking up about things, right? We can't just have a team where the one senior person on the team just like calls all the shots and everything. None of the juniors can talk. Can't have a team where the juniors don't feel comfortable asking questions. Like, there's all of these different components that go into making a team run smoothly. But at the end of the day, if I am the one that constantly has to go around enabling that to happen, I don't have time to do other effective things. So the way that I approach this kind of stuff as an engineering manager is sort of finding ways to enable the team to do that. So to give you an example of what I mean by that is like, if I were to talk, just to give you a really simple, contrived example, We're talking about team processes, and we don't do code reviews yet, right? And I want to propose to the team, hey, buddy, you're not supposed to merge over that line. What a jerk. That's not what I would propose to the team, sorry. If I want to go say like, hey, like we actually have a gap here, we need to like propose this, we should do code reviews, we should put something in place. Like if I'm the one who's constantly doing that and looking for all of those opportunities, that's something that I am constantly required to do. It means I'm going to have to go chase down the next thing and propose it, and the next improvement and the next gap to try and make progress on. But instead, what I should be doing is demonstrating to the team, hey, look, we should be able to have open conversations about these opportunities to improve things, right? And then empowering them to be able to speak up about that kind of stuff. And I might catch on a little bit more with the senior people. Come on, get in here. Go, 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 go. Oh my God. Let's just... I wish, I've said this before, I wish that I could have 2 cameras in here. Maybe this channel will be successful one day, and I can have 2 cameras going, and I can hire a vlog editor, and I can show you what I'm seeing, because holy shit, man, it's some people and the driving ability, they don't meet. The point, sorry, we got a long time, so it's pretty wordy, and I apologize, but the point I'm trying to say here is that I want to enable my team to be able to start doing that stuff. I want them to know that they're supported in suggesting things, that we can try things out. But it's not me sitting there just telling the team, here's how we make improvements. I need to show them that it's safe to do so, safe to make suggestions, safe that we can experiment with trying something, and if it sucks, then we undo it. It's okay. But this is one example, right? And when I can find ways like that in a team, ultimately what's happening is I am slowly replacing myself, right? The example I was giving there was like, hey, let me try to find a way to suggest to the team a way that we can be better, right? Let's introduce code reviews. That should help us write better software. Okay. And I can keep doing these things. But instead of me doing that, if I teach the team how they can do it, I'm slowly replacing that aspect of what I do. And that doesn't mean that I will never have an opinion about stuff or ever speak up. It just means that I'm no longer required to do it every single time. Same thing, another quick example, helping more junior people on the team. If I were responsible on a team to go around and make sure that I was helping everyone individually, that would occupy a lot of my time. And I want to make sure that everyone is helped. But the only way to really scale that is to make sure other people on the team are enabling it to happen. And that means that you need to have more senior people helping more junior people out. You need to have people helping out their peers. So again, trying to create a culture on the team where people do this. It's another example. And it's like, these are small things, right? But an example of where I am doing things that start replacing me. There are certain aspects like the one-on-ones I was talking about, or career conversations. Those are parts that, like, ultimately I'm gonna need to do that. But there's a lot of other elements that I am, air quotes, replacing myself. I'm showing the team how they can make the whole team more effective. So this is sort of like a philosophy that I followed throughout my entire career. And yeah, like the reality is, if I can have a team doing that, where the team really feels like they're autonomous in terms of how they're accomplishing work, you know what's like a really cool test of this is to be able to go on vacation, right? And you come back and it's not like the team's like, oh, thank God you're back. Like we didn't know like how to get this work done, and this thing came up and we couldn't reprioritize it, and like Joey's been stuck on this bug for 2 weeks. And like, if you can come back and people are like, yeah, like we've been going, like things are good, we're making progress, you have a thing here and there maybe that come up, but when overall everyone feels like very good, when you step away, to go on vacation, to do something, right? It's a really interesting little check to be able to say, hey, look, like that team is actually doing pretty well. So just I just wanted to kind of share that perspective as an engineering manager, like that it also, like that this philosophy applies to how I look at my career as well. From a sorry, there's like a seed in my throat for my smoothie. From a software engineering perspective, as an individual contributor, the way that someone responded in the comments, like the one comment that I replied to, they said something along the lines of like, don't try to like, how do they say it? It's not don't make yourself irreplaceable, but they kind of said like, almost like run towards being replaceable. Like that's the direction you want to go in. Like automate your job, or automate yourself out of a job, which I think is super interesting, right? This might, I mean, the analogy doesn't make sense for everything you're doing in your role. So don't, I know as software engineers, like a lot of the time we're very literal in what someone's saying. And you might say, well, that absolutely doesn't make sense. I can't just have everything automated that I do. And I don't think that's the point of what this person's saying. But if you imagine the things that you're responsible for, okay, it's a little bit easier to imagine with like a live service or something like that. But even without, let's say that part of your job is like you're responsible for a product, like a feature area, okay? Could be a service, part of a service, or like truly like a feature area in a product that's shipped. It doesn't have to be a live service, whatever. You're responsible for it. There might be aspects of your job where like you need to be looking at data. Okay, so I'm making up an example here. Bear with me. So you have to be looking at data as part of your job because we need to make data-driven decisions, okay? So you start things off by being like, okay, we need the data. We actually don't have any data that's being reported. So you might start off by going, okay, like, what's really important for our customers is like latency. Latency is really important to look at. So what you do is you're like, well, I need the data. So I'm going to go run some tests and collect this information. And you go run it and you're like, okay, well, here's our latency, and you have some numbers. And okay, you're happy. Like you have a starting point. This is helpful. And then you share this with your manager, your team, whatever, product owner. And it's like, okay, well, those latency numbers aren't good enough. We need to improve them. And you're like, makes sense. Okay, let's drive towards this goal. And then what happens is you make those improvements. And then you're like, okay, well, I have to go run those, I have to go collect that data again. Okay, so you go do it. You spend some time doing it. Now, the problem with this is that both you acknowledge like we need data. So let me start by saying the good thing is that you went and figured out what data you need to collect, right? You did a good thing. We need data. Let me go find how to do it. Let me do it. Let me analyze it. Now, the problem is that both times you had to go do it. Okay, so what about the third time? Well, you might say, okay, look, instead of me doing this every time, I am going to automate this part. Why don't we instead have the metrics always going up somewhere? Right? Okay, so now the next time I need metrics, hey, look, like we spent some extra time, we built this thing, the metrics always go up. Now I need metrics. I'm just going to go look where the metrics are reported, and now I can just do the analysis. This is great. And then you're doing the analysis and you go, okay, manager or product owner, again, however this looks, here's the analysis, and it looks like we have regressed a little bit. So like, let's go make sure that we can, we'll spend some time and we'll tune this. And you might do this for a little while, and then you start to realize like, hold on, like, why am I running the analysis every time here? Why am I doing this? Like, wouldn't it be good if it just told me when there was an issue? So then you go, okay, look, hey, manager, product owner, we're going to invest in trying to make this more efficient. Instead of me spending X amount of time every week or every 2 weeks, whatever it is, collecting the data, like that's already, sorry, you're not collecting anymore, analyzing the data, let's say, and then trying to say, oh, now we've regressed or we're good. I'm going to go change the infrastructure a little bit, and it's going to alert us if we regress. So you invest a little bit of time into that, and now you've automated this part of your job that you are responsible for completely away. So it's not that like, hey, you don't have to code anymore, but you had some responsibility. And what you were able to do is leverage software for a core part of what you're responsible for to be able to start making that go away. So this is just one simple contrived example where your job requires, metrics and analysis, and finding ways to make that better. So the idea being, in your role, whatever that happens to be, right, looking for these opportunities. How am I spending time? How am I spending time? How can I make it not so that people come to me and I am the bottleneck, right? That's another way to look at it, perhaps, is like maybe less about like a technology perspective. But historically, people come to you because you have the secret sauce, but you're the bottleneck now. And it might feel good for a bit because you're like, oh, like I'm important. Like people come to me for this. I'm the subject matter expert. But the challenge with this is that you're the bottleneck. So you can actually make the entire team more efficient by enabling the entire team, or at least more people, to do that thing that you're doing. Right? Like, what if people didn't have to come to you to get that data or to make some change? What if they didn't have to do that? What if instead that was something that multiple people could do? Or better yet, what if that was something that there was an automatic system for that didn't require people to have to do it? They could just go use the tool or use the system and not have to disrupt anyone to make that happen. So this is sort of that mentality or the philosophy around trying to automate yourself out of that job. Instead of latching on to these things where you're like, I need to be the person that holds on to this, how can you find ways to say like, nope, like I'm not going to be the person that holds on to this. Here's the tool or the system or the process, make it happen. And now you're probably saying, well, then what? Like, why do I want to do this? Because aren't I just giving up the things that like people see me as important for? But I think it is backwards thinking. I understand why it's kind of easy to think this way, but like, let's take a step out from that that thought process. Okay, so now let's imagine that you're an engineering manager. Okay, would you rather have people that you're bringing onto your team that are being bottlenecks, that are hoarding information, that do things manually, or would you rather bringing on people to your team that enable all of their peers to be effective, that aren't bottlenecks, that try to automate things so that they're not spending their own manual time doing it? Like, if you see what I'm doing there, I'm flipping the entire thing around. You look much more valuable to other people when you're able to demonstrate that you're doing those things. So that's why I'm saying it's backwards thinking. It might feel like, oh, I'm so important to have this thing that I own and no one else can touch it. But the reality is, like, think about the people that want you on the team. Right? You don't want to compose a team of people that are going to hoard information or gatekeep certain processes or something. Like, you want the exact opposite. So you become much more of an attractive employee in terms of like your capabilities by flipping that mindset around. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps for the framing, right? It's like people would want to hire the person where they're like, holy crap, look, that person, they enabled their whole team or part of their organization, whatever, to be so much more more effective. Like, we want that. Like, we want that over here. I want that person. Right? This is why, like, even on some of those things, sometimes it doesn't have to be like a technology specific thing. This is why we talk about informal leadership a lot, and why that can be so valuable. Is like, I know the context here was a little bit about like automating yourself out of the job, right? But when you can, it's not just an automate kind of solution. It's more like truly making yourself replaceable, right? I like thinking about informal leadership this way because what you end up doing a lot of the time with people that are really good, like in my opinion, really good informal leaders, is like they take their time and effort, they invest it into other people, and they sort of, it's like a multiplier effect, right? So they enable those other people around them to be better, but it also builds up a culture of like other people seeing the positive effect of doing this, and then they start to do more of it too. The exact opposite thing can happen, by the way, when you have a culture where people are the opposite of multipliers, and it can be like really toxic. So I think it's really important to try and make sure that you have these types of people that are truly like multipliers, really good informal leaders, helping others be better, and then trying to reduce as much as possible the sort of the people that are more toxic in the other direction. But yeah, I think it's a lot of what I wanted to say. But the reality is there's another 23 minutes left in this drive because of this crazy traffic. So I don't know if I have any more for this topic, but I still want to chat with you folks. So now that you're here, if you're still listening, hopefully that was an interesting topic. I think, like I said at the beginning of this, right, if you have questions you want answered, put them in the comments or message me. It's probably more valuable for you, I'm assuming, if you're like, hey, I'm curious about this, like, message me. I'll literally make a video, and as long as it's not ridiculous, if it's related to your engineering career, I'd be happy to do that. But with that said, maybe, I got a little bit of time on the drive left here. So maybe let's just talk about code commute and the direction I'm trying to head with things. So I recently, I think I mentioned this in one of the last videos, but channel recently was monetized, which is pretty cool. I actually don't know if YouTube was showing ads on the channel before. I feel like, why wouldn't they? They're just not giving me a cut of them. Monetization on a channel, I think if you're not familiar with with YouTube and stuff, having a monetized channel does not mean like all of a sudden like I'm rolling in the dough. My main channel has 9 times, almost 10 times the subscriber base as this one, and I think it's declined recently because I had a couple of weeks over the holidays where I wasn't pumping out as much content. But from ad revenue, it was peaking at like $3 a day. Okay, so, and if you're like, hey, like that's still like that's like $100 a month. Like, yeah, it is, but like context, 3 videos a week plus an hour and a half, so an hour to 2 hour live stream. Okay, so we're already like a bunch of time. I used to edit my own videos. I stopped doing that because that was chewing up a lot of time. So I pay an editor. I pay to have my thumbnails made. That channel that makes $3 a day also loses about $500 to $1,000 a month. So I'm very underwater on my main channel. So I'm just sharing this with you so you understand when I talk about like why this is exciting for me is having Code Commute as a second monetized channel. I will be, hoping to cover more of my costs on my main channel that requires professional editing. which is pretty cool. If this continues to grow, like obviously if we're looking in the future, like if this channel gets bigger, I actually think this channel will overtake my main one at the sort of based on the metrics I see. It might take a little while, but I think it'll do it. If that's the case, then, you know, at some point maybe I can hire an editor for this channel. I don't know if people are like, hey, no, we actually like the format, we'll just stick with that. So I don't know, we'll have to see. But right now, the way that I've structured this channel is really nice for me to be able to very low, I use the phrase activation energy a lot, but it's a low activation energy approach for me to get content on the internet. And based on the feedback I've been getting in messages and stuff, people are finding it very helpful, so I'll keep doing it. But when I say activation energy, if you're like, Nick, what the hell are you talking about? A lot of what I do is like I end up like overworking myself. I spread myself too thin. And then the result of that is that it's not quite burnout, but like I kind of ride this fine line of like I'm overwhelmed. And what can happen is like if I'm riding that line too close and something comes up and then I become overwhelmed, it's almost like everything falls apart. So to give you an example, I mean, I was sick over the holidays a little bit, so not quite the same, but if I'm overwhelmed, then I might go, well, I can't make YouTube videos. And then that starts to fall apart. And then I'm like, well, if I'm not making YouTube videos, I can't be posting online. Like, I don't have capacity to think about responding to people's comments. Like, everything just starts to kind of have a cascading, like, downward spiral, right? So when I'm saying it's a low activation energy, what I'm trying to say is like it doesn't stress me out to go turn a camera on and talk to it about software engineering topics. So that's actually very helpful for me because there are some things I do as a content creator that are extremely high activation energy. And one of them is like what I do on my main channel. When I have to put together a programming tutorial, that is high activation energy. It's less activation energy for me when I have a handful of topics that I can string together for tutorials, but I still have to go sit down and code them and walk through, and it's more technical. And for example, you hear me saying and thinking and pausing here, like I need to be cognizant of that when I'm recording stuff because that's time that my editor has to sit there and trim shit out. So it's just more. It's more stress. It's more work. But this is nice for me to be able to do this. Now, I also acknowledge that because this was a long drive, by the time I wrapped up the topic, probably half the audience or more already was like, nope, I'm out of here. Like came for what I wanted. But the other nice thing about this channel is that I think actually a bunch of you stick around. You're like, I'm driving anyway, or I'm on the bus, or I'm commuting, like whatever, I'll just hang out. So it feels a little bit nicer that way, that I feel a little bit more connected with the subscriber base right now, which is cool. So I did want to say thank you for being here because I do appreciate it. It's actually, I talked to my wife about this last night. Today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, last night. So I did I'll just kind of give you the background story here. So I did my dev leader live stream on Monday, which by the way, that's every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific if you want to come check that out. And it's cool. Like there's actually a bunch of people from Commute that are coming over and looking at that. So it's great to see you guys there. But what had happened was someone did use super chat and they tipped me, which is super cool. Like I was, it's not the amount of money or whatever. It could have been a penny. It could have been $100. Doesn't matter. The point is that someone was thankful and did it. So it kind of caught me off guard. And I had said to them, my wife watches a lot of court TV, loves watching live streams of basically former lawyers or maybe they are currently lawyers, talk through court cases and stuff, very interesting for her. But they're live streaming it, and we've talked about the fact that like if you just sit there and watch it, you'll see that's constant people tipping. And I'm sure, like, given the size of their audience, their sponsorships, whatever else, like I'm sure they're making a killing from it, right? It's nuts. So I made a comment on stream that was like, hey, like, thank you so much for that. I mentioned the court thing that my wife watches that. And I said, like, my wife, I think she probably thinks what I'm doing is a little bit silly, like that I have my YouTube channel with my tutorials and my live stream, and like I have Code Commute, and like I think to her she's probably like, okay, like that's very nice, but the reality is like she knows that I enjoy doing it, and like supports me that I'm doing it. So we were talking about this last night, and I said to her, like, we were talking through how I mentioned it on stream, and she's like, oh, but like, you made me sound so supportive, but like, I know you probably don't actually enjoy it or whatever, like it's just work. And I said, no, like that's actually not true. I said, sure, like the tutorials and stuff, like back to the activation energy, I said, sure, like that's sometimes pretty taxing. But I said, to go do a live stream, I said, I do really enjoy that. And like same with Code Commute, I said I do enjoy that. And I enjoy it because it's this opportunity, at least for me. I get the opportunity where I'm helping people, and that just feels good. Like it's a very fulfilling thing. So I realize that even like maybe this part of my conversation, you're like, Nick, that's bullshit. You're not helping anyone. You're just blabbing. I put out a lot of videos, okay? So when I have people message me and stuff, or they say in the comments like, hey, that really helped, like that actually makes me feel really good. So being able to have folks like you listening give me some time of day of yours. Everyone's got busy days. So the fact that you chose to sit and listen to me talk about this stuff and hung out with me, and you were willing to kind of hear about my experiences, like I do really appreciate that. When people write in, like I don't know, for some perspective, like think about it this way, like this is maybe one of the best ways I can put it. I have complete strangers that are writing me emails and sending me LinkedIn messages and trusting me to talk about a topic, like they're explaining all these details because they're hopeful that I can help them at least navigate it or have some different perspective. And for me, that feels really cool because like I said, they are strangers to me, and the fact that they're like, hey, I at least admire some part of what you're saying and how you're talking about these things, like that feels good to me. So being able to do Code Commute, being able to do Dev Leader, being able to put out content and stuff, like I do enjoy that. It is a feel good kind of thing. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you. But I don't know. I think this channel's been a lot of fun to put together. It's been, I don't know when I actually started doing it a little bit more seriously, but there's over 100 like vlogs on the channel already, and I think it's only like a few months old. So tires are low. Come on. Oh, maybe that was gas. It's both. Need gas and I need air in the tires. It's never ending. But what I was trying to say for this channel is like there's a lot of videos that get to go out, which is cool, but I had asked this question on one of the community posts on YouTube, and there's this option to essentially like have like channel memberships. And the original question I had to folks was like, hey, like for me, Code Commute is like I get to I like cars, like it's a hobby of mine. So I get to be in the car, talk about software engineering, also a hobby of mine, also my career. And initially, and I mean, this is always kind of going on in my mind, I'm like, are people joining in for the software engineering, or are they joining in because they're like, hey, like, I like cars too? I think based on that question, and I don't know, just like as the channel's going on, I think it is a lot more for software engineering. But I've been curious if people like wanted to see more car stuff, and I was thinking I might do, and I have to experiment with this and kind of get feedback, but what I might do is like channel memberships, and I'll show more behind the scenes for car stuff, and I think that might be fun for some people. It's just one of those things, like if people are interested, like that might be fun to do, but I don't want to do channel memberships that don't actually offer value to people. Like if I do it and people are like, hey, like we just don't care about the car stuff, then that's a waste of everyone's time. I won't do it, but we'll see. So just kind of wanted to share that because I'm trying to think if there's some interesting things to do there. On my main dev leader channel, I did channel memberships for what are essentially like weekly vlogs, and I think I had one person do a channel membership before I was like, nah, like screw it, I'm not going to do this, because it was kind of an indicator, like if I make it available and people just don't want to pay for it, then it's either I'm not telling people about it or they don't find it valuable. And truly, like it's not going to hurt my feelings. If people don't find it valuable, that's totally fine. I will find another thing to do. So it's one thought for the channel memberships. We'll see. But I think there could be some exciting things. I might, as this channel grows, I might try to look for channel sponsors and stuff. But I have to be like conscious because I have the two channels, Dev Leader and Code Commute. If I get channel sponsors for this, like I need to start covering costs on Dev Leader, so they might feed back into that. But I would like to be able to feed, if this channel's making any money, I'd like to feed back into what this channel's doing. So I already have the equipment. The thing I mentioned earlier about the 2 cameras, like I'm gonna need an editor for that to stitch that stuff together. So there's editing costs, right? I think I'm a long way. If I already can't support one channel economically, I think supporting a second doing the same thing is going to be kind of tricky as well. So anyway, point of all this is like I'm just thinking through like the growth of this channel and where I want it to go. So got some fun stuff ahead, but lots of options to explore. So how long has this been? I'm stopped right now. That's why I'm looking at the camera. So 50 minutes. We'll wrap it up. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for sticking to the end. And I'll see you next time.